What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to make a small instructional video here as to how I approach in-game bossing with my hardcore Stormclaw Druid here in Diablo 4 Season 2. So there is a lot of little changes I make to the overall build when compared to my dungeon setup, and I'd like to just go over it in real time and then do maybe one or two Uber Lilith fights, one using Tempest Roar and one using the Godslayer crown on the second phase of Uber Lilith, just to show you guys the overall damage changes and to show you how the fight is pretty easy even without the most optimal setup. So I will be posting a link to the build video down in the description of this video, as well as a link to the Mobalytics page if you are interested in checking this out. But let's go ahead and get started. So let's take a look at the setup overall. Now, I will say that there is a lot of damage still left on the table, as I need a better staff as well as better rings. So there is a nice damage increase that you will see if you have a better staff than I do, or if you have the proper affixes on your rings. Let's go ahead and look at the gear real quick. So as I said, I will be using a Tempest Roar. I love having Mad Wolf's Glee. I love this chest piece. I love the movement speed, so I'll probably never swap out of that. Then I will be using Conceited Gauntlets for that increased damage while you have a barrier. And then I will be using Tebow's Will because I like the extra damage you get, the multiplicative damage here when you're unstoppable. And we do have barrier up all the time from Bulwark. Then we're using these Symbiotic Boots. And then as you can see here, my Greater Staff of the Crone is not maxed out. I need a 925 staff with some decent rolls here. Then on our neck piece, we have a really good amulet there. I have a decent roll here on my armor, as well as +3 rings to Envenom. And then for our rings, you see the overcharged aspect here, but I am missing the critical strike damage increase or damage to distant enemies if you're looking to buff up your Thunderstruck legendary node. And I currently have vulnerable damage. And then for my second ring, I'm using my Rune Workers, and again, you see here I have damage to poison enemies and a pretty low roll at that. And again, I'd like to have some critical strike damage or damage to distant enemies to buff up the legendary node in the Thunderstruck board. So going over to our vampiric powers, we are going to be using Undying. We're using Sanguine Brace for that increased critical strike chance when we're fortified. We're using Moonrise and Ravenous, obviously, for the attack speed with this build. And then we're using Prey on the Weak to do an increased damage to vulnerable targets. Moving over to our Spirit Boons. Again, it's pretty much the same as it is on the Mobalytics page. We got Weariness. We're using Avian Wrath, as well as Scythe Talons. We're using Calamity. And then we're using Overload. So nothing really has changed there. Then for our abilities, we are going to swap out our Poison Creeper, which I was using for dungeoning, put a point back into the Electric Shock, and then go 2 points in Ravens because we want that increased critical strike chance to the target when our Ravens hit it. That's pretty much how I set up the overall build in terms of skills. My Paragon board stays the same, my vampiric powers, as well as my Spirit Boons. So then I'm going to go into my inventory, and I personally like to run the Elixir of Cruelty, as I like that increased critical strike chance, and it's a pretty big one at 15%. Now, you can run other elixirs. I have some in my chest over here. You can also run the Elixir of Combatant Fortune with that increased lucky hit chance by 20%. Or you can run the Elixir of Savagery to give you some increased critical strike damage. And all of those elixirs are farmable through Helltides. So they're pretty easy to get, especially this season, because we're always farming Helltides, because you have to in order to summon the Galvanic Saint, so you can then summon Duriel. So now that we're done with that, we're going to go ahead and go to our Uber Lilith fight. And like I said, I'm going to go ahead and keep this Tempest Roar on, and we're just going to go ahead and use an Elixir of Cruelty, and go ahead and refresh our Elixir of Death Evasion. Also, I would like to add, you can use an Ensign if you'd like, but I just decided not to, just because it would showcase the build a little bit more without having to have too many extra things on the build. So the first thing we're going to do as we approach Uber Lilith is we're going to pop our Bulwark right here, just so we don't get stunned for that initial laydown. And we're not going to use our ultimate until the second phase when she drops down. Now we're going to pop our ultimate just to push her through, and you see she's pretty much dead right there. And now here's the time where you could probably swap to a Godslayer crown, but like I said, we're just going to do it without the Godslayer crown first. So we're really just trying to push her through this first quarter of her health. And then she's going to die here on the second part. And now we just have to go through the whole platform deal that she does. And a big part here is we want to go ahead and stun her because we do not want her to get stunned at the end of the fight, as it can bug out and you'll end up getting one shot. And that's pretty much the end of the fight there. And you can see we didn't even use Godslayer, so. Now we're going to go ahead and do the second fight with Godslayer. Alright, so like I said, for the second fight, we're just going to toss on the Godslayer helmet on the second phase, just to push her a little bit faster through that first initial set of health breaks, so that way we make sure we get into the platform removal phase. But again, you really don't have to. This is just optional. So Bulwark again. Go in, start doing your damage. Like I said, we are waiting till this second phase, pop our ultimate. She's basically dead. Just clean up these guys, nothing too crazy. Now on this phase, we can go ahead, swap into our Godslayer. And we're just making sure we keep up our Fortify here. And you see we're getting a nice little damage boost from our Godslayer. And you can even swap out back to your Tempest Roar here if you'd like to, but you really don't have to. And then the rest of the fight is pretty much on rails after that. There's no need to really worry. And we'll try not to stun her here. We'll just kind of stay off to the side, because I like to stun her on, I like to stun her on this third part. So we'll go ahead and stun her up. Actually, she didn't get stunned, so that might not be too good for us. Oh, never mind. So we didn't get the bug. Thankfully, we did not get the bug. And that's really it, guys. That's how I set up my bossing build. And you can pretty much do the same here for every other boss. I can go ahead and add in a quick Varshan run just to show you guys what it would be like if you're using Godslayer Crown when you're going into a boss where you have to clear ads first. So you know, with in-game bossing, a lot of these little areas have a series of monsters you have to go through before you get to the boss. So the thing I like to do here is just go ahead and equip a Tempest Roar helmet before we even get to the boss. And then when we get to the boss room, before we summon the boss, we just swap back into our Godslayer helm, so we get that Godslayer proc on the boss, so we don't have to wait any amount of time to utilize that Godslayer damage. So we're just going to go ahead and run through.
I must wait a moment.
And this will help us build up some stacks on Rune Worker as well. Then now that we're here, we'll just swap on over. Go ahead and use the altar, and this is the same for the Galvanic Saint or Duriel, whatever boss you're using. And then we're just going to go ahead, bang, pop everything, and that's really it. So again, you can do that for Galvanic Saint, you can do that for Duriel. It's really a nice way to go ahead and get that damage bonus from Godslayer immediately without having to wait. But for Duriel, I would just recommend that you go ahead and get through the initial mob phase with the 2 giant worm dudes that shoot poison, and then swap into your Godslayer crown before Duriel has a chance to spawn. But that's really it for the video, guys. I hope this was informative. I hoped it helped you guys kind of understand how I approach bossing here. And again, the link to this build will be in the description below, as well as a link to the Mobalytics page. If you have any questions whatsoever, go ahead and post them down in the comments section, and then I will answer them as soon as I see them. But that's all for me for this video. I hope you guys are having a great day or a great night, depending on wherever you're from, and peace out. I will see you in the next one.